What else do you need in your life? Are you not entertained coming along with us here on the SportsGrid Network?
They have regressed horrifically in the 3 years that he's been in charge. They are a disaster. They are a sinking ship.
Casey, why you bugging?
Who I must ask, did you see Caitlin Clark, by the way, Dubsy, nearly take a couple people's heads off with her tee shot today? I mean, how great was that?
I've never seen anything close to the show. I've been on the golf course until I saw that video of Caitlin Clark.
They are anemic. They can't stop a runny nose. Their defense is as bad as the Jets.
I don't know how anybody looks at the Jets and wants to lay anything with them except lay down and just, and die at this point here, Ben.
The Jets will always jet.
I hate them. Give me Duke minus a 6.5 tonight.
Now we live in a society. Oh, it's not fair. We need 12 teams. It's not fair. We're going to have 16 teams, 24 teams. What the hell are we doing here?
I think UConn actually wins the national championship if they can stay healthy. Little side note for everybody.
In women, South Carolina,
all right,
big favorite.
Oh, no. In both.
Kentucky going to fall off that map, man. Don't worry about it. Flat Earth, they fall right off, Kyrie Irving style.
Yeah.
It's the Dallas Cowboys, and they're ran like a Pee-wee football team. Yeah. I can't believe this.
Like people enjoy saying Knickerbockers. Well, like
saying Knickerbockers, except you.
Losing to who? The Detroit Pistons? What? How do you do this one, Spo? Come on.
He's going to give deference to Georgia because of the G on the side of the helmet. I certainly understand that.
Those of you that watch us every night, we really do appreciate you.
Only on...
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Pro Football Today. Mike Blewett in for Kevin Walsh, along with Donnie Rightside, Joe Lisi. Excited to bring you all the action, the news related to Week 12 in the NFL. So we had a wild college football Saturday. Upsets abound, especially in the SEC. Joe Lisi, do you think we get a similar kind of craziness in the NFL this week?
I don't know. Week number 12 isn't as sexy as the college slate yesterday, but there's some good games. We have Minnesota and Chicago. Also, the marquee battle in terms of Packers and San Francisco. We got Brandon Allen taking over for Brock Purdy. And then the Sunday night game, Donnie, right? L.A. and the Philadelphia Eagles. That's an NFC battle. Philly can solidify themselves as maybe being the second-best team in the conference.
Look, NFL is always fantastic to watch. Don't get me wrong. But this slate is a little bit lacking. That's why us three up here today will bring that heat to make sure you are ready for these games. And for me, a Philadelphia Eagles fan, I'm going to be enjoying that Sunday night football game. I think it's the marquee game of the day, guys. Philadelphia and Los Angeles could have fireworks out there at SoFi. So I'm excited more for the night game than for the regular slate today, but this is what we do.
Hey, wrap it up.
This is what we do. Yeah, this is what we do.
Yeah, we got like 12 hours to go before that game kicks off, so we're going to get to that. We'll probably dive into Sunday night football a little bit more than we otherwise would because there are, in fact, 6 teams on bye. Those teams on bye, the Falcons, the Bills, Bengals, Jaguars, New Orleans Saints, and the New York Jets. A couple of those teams, obviously, have high-powered offenses, and also you might have been in a position in previous weeks where you were picking on some of those defenses. We don't have that luxury this week. I will say, and we'll get a little bit deeper into this game in the next segment, but that Niners-Packers game, Joe, that we discussed, obviously major injuries going to impact that one with Brock Purdy on the sidelines along with Nick Bosa.
Well, think week number 12, if I would have told you that San Francisco was 500 and obviously fighting for potential a wild card appearance, Donnie, right? Would you have bought into that fact? They've dealt with injuries, but still not the same consistency that we've seen in terms of an offensive perspective. They struggled last week with Seattle, and they have a red-hot team right now in terms of Green Bay, 7-3 overall. They've won 5 of the last 6, pick up the victory last week against Chicago. they're going to need their A game to pull this ball game out, especially now as 5.5-point dogs.
Yeah, we saw the look-ahead line was actually -1.5 in favor of the San Francisco 49ers. Now you see it completely shift over to 3.5s. We're out there when we weren't sure who the quarterback was going to be for the 49ers. Once Allen was inserted as that starting quarterback and Brock Purdy was out, an initial 2-point move right off the bat. So across the board, we're looking at 5.5s, and I agree with that here. You're also taking a look at key injuries here. Is Deebo Samuel going to wake up today? Is this today the finally time that you're going to say, give me the ball 25 times in the backfield for Christian McCaffrey? That's what they're going to need. But for me, I think it's a Green Bay day here. Way too many injuries. And also, let's keep in mind, this isn't like an 8-2 team rolling up here. This is a 5-5 49ers football team, Mike, that's now looking on the cusp of being under 500 after Week 12. Insane.
Yeah, I go right back to you on that, Donnie, because that's sort of where I was going to lead the conversation. There's always a lot of talk of contenders and pretenders within the NFL, and I feel like Thanksgiving, which is just a few days away, is around the time where we really start to see the teams that are good or will about to be on a run play much better football, and some of those teams that have been holding together week over week, maybe start to fall apart. The Niners, we have seen in years past them have slower starts and then get on a run. Unfortunately, in this instance, they are running into injuries and may not tick off a huge win streak now. But how about some other teams? Like the Packers, the team that they are facing today, I feel like it's really important for them to play a good game today because they have been escaping in recent weeks with victories. Jordan Love's still throwing way too many interceptions. Do you feel like that the Packers, despite whatever happens today, do you feel like they still have the profile to make a huge run in the playoffs?
I think they do because the concept is there. Love the head football coach, love the quarterback. And you're right, a little bit less on the interception and turnover mind. Maybe we start to look at something where they can do Super Bowl-wise. But also, like, we're not going to let the 49ers even escape this game because if you're taking a look at both of these teams, who are you buying in more? By far, it's the Green Bay Packers. I think they win today, but also from a 49ers perspective. 5-5 could turn into 5-6. We don't know if Brock Purdy, Joe, is even coming back next week. You know what they have? The Buffalo Bills. Yeah. You might be staring at 5-7 for the 49ers. So, Mike, just to answer your question quickly, yes, the Green Bay Packers have enough in the tank where I do think they can do some damage in the playoffs. Complete opposite feeling for me, Joe, on the 49ers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think right now, if I had a bet on San Fran, I'd say they're out of the playoffs. I believe the Rams have a better shot.
Yeah.
Arizona in their division playing as good as anybody. I think they potentially could steal it, have a tough game in Seattle today. But to your point about Green Bay, battle-tested, but they went on the road, 4-1 on the road this year. Only loss did come week 1 to the Philadelphia Eagles, and that was in Brazil. So as long as Jordan Love could stay healthy, this team has a multitude of playmakers to step up, Mike.
Yeah, and I think we have some other teams, too. Like, we'll talk about the Lions today and the Chiefs, who may not be facing their most talented opponents today, but I think we're going to want to see those teams continue the role in the case of the Lions, and with the Chiefs, Joe, to see a bounce-back performance against a Panthers team that obviously has struggled for wins this year, but also you look at their injury report, it's not pretty.
No, it wasn't, and Buffalo exposed them last week, right? Josh Allen on the ground, 56 total yards. They were able to run it. They exposed them defensively as well. For Kansas City, they've gotten by in terms of being able to grind games out. Xavier Worthy with a huge first half, 61 yards, gets a touchdown. He's non-existent in terms of the second half. They built a 9-point lead and held on. And at the end of the day, what happens now on the road, laying 10.5 against Carolina? They're going to walk through the motions. They're going to try to pound this team, Donnie, to really get back to at least a 10-1 overall record.
Yeah, Kareem Hunt probably is going to be that go-to point today because we're looking at Isaiah Pacheco opting to come back from IR. Or should I say the team opting for him to come back from IR, but holding out one more week. Why? Because it's the Carolina Panthers. This should be an easy victory for Kansas City. But also, you're not in one of those environments, Joe, that's last week you had so much of a high there. You're looking to continue your season there being undefeated, possibly winning back-to-back Super Bowls. Now, granted, that's going to be coming a little bit down the line when they make the playoffs, but no longer perfection. Now you go down to Carolina. Do you sleepwalk through this football game, which will be something to watch? Me, I don't think that's going to be the case. Carolina is one of the worst defenses, if not the worst defense in football. Kansas City should be able to do whatever they want on offense in this game for a victory and move on, Mike, with their season.
Similar situation for the Texans facing a Titans defense that the Titans defense that has held up, but the offense really struggles to get any kind of points on the board. They have covered only one game this season, Joe. And Houston, I think we're going to want to see another performance out of Houston that is maybe of the 2023 vintage where they go out and blow the doors off.
Yeah, well, you got it last week against Dallas, right? You know, you saw the passing attack step up. We saw Nico Collins get back involved, coming back from IR, and the defense made plays, and more importantly, was opportunistic against Cooper Rush. Expect the same today against an inept Tennessee offense. I mean, the biggest thing for Tennessee is that they got beat up last week at home by a physical Minnesota team. Now you go on the road and you face C.J. Stroud. It doesn't matter. They're going to have to put up at least 20 to 23 points to compete with Houston at home. I just don't see it. Joe Mixon with a breakout performance, Donnie.
Yeah, and also talk about a breakout performance we thought we were getting last week out of Nico Collins. Slip screen, 75-plus yards to start that game, gets called back. I think he's a key contributor today for that offense, and nobody trusts Will Levis. That's the issue. It's time for the Houston Texans to really exert their dominance in division play, which should start today. I don't think there's too many people out there going, you know what? The Titans are in a great spot. And also keep in mind, Snead was a big, addition in the offseason for that Titans defense. He's going to be out. So another marker there for Nico Collins for me, Mike.
Yeah, I think turnovers will tell the story. We'll get into that game a little bit deeper as well. Another team that we're looking to see if they can run it back, like Joe said the Texans did against the Cowboys. Can they do it again this week? How about those Miami Dolphins, Donnie, where they blow the doors off the Raiders in the second half? And now they have a Patriots team that has fought pretty well through games, but what we see a lot of times with these teams is they fight hard, and at the end of the game, it doesn't go their way. They don't have enough talent, and the Patriots injury report also pretty extensive.
Yeah, by the way, a little bit of a teaser later in the show. Sell me something going to come from a quarterback in this game. I'm not going to tell you which quarterback I got to sell you on here, but I do think that key indicator, Joe, 7.5, that's a big number here. Could we see New England maybe play within that number? Do I think they win the game? No, but I think they'll be competitive
Yeah,
today.
We've seen Miami play down to the level of competition, the inconsistency from week to week. They beat up on Gardner Minshew in Las Vegas. I think they can run the football. But again, New England plus 7.5 might be live a little bit later, guys.
All right, good stuff. So we will get into all of these games here on Pro Football today. A little bit of a lighter slate allows us to go a little bit deeper on some of these games. Hope Kevin's having a great time wherever he may be
Where
today.
is he?
Taking it where? Who knows where Kevin Walsh is? Will he come back next week? Will I?
I like it.
Mike Blewett and Donnie and Joe coming up next.
Your main event, Tale of the Tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Ferreira is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6 foot 8. Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs. Francis Ngannou in the gold and black. Reina Ferreira in the gray.
With that lead hand, he's got to be cautious because that right hand is coming over the top.
Oh! Off-balanced him a little bit. Takedown right there. Randy Couture told you to watch for the wrestling. Who lands the takedowns? Good level change from Francis. Well timed. Drives through. Now on top.
My goodness. How are you going to get more of that? Oh!
Triangle attempt here.
Francis needs to rip out of that right now. The longer he stays, the more chance he has of getting caught.
Wrist again, trying to stifle the punching attack of Ngannou.
Round one halfway gone. Now the far side underhook for Reina Ferreira. See if he can build himself up. Easier said than done. From underneath somebody like Francis Ngannou, who punches from the top. Nasty work! Francis Ngannou wailing away.
Look how heavy he is on the hips. Look at that positioning. That's beautiful work. Henry's going to have to work tremendously hard to get Ngannou off him so he can get back. And he is unleashing up the front. Oh, he's out! He's out!
And we're on Pro Football today. Off to the races. We're going to start diving a little bit deeper into the game that we previewed in the first segment, and that's The 49ers traveling to Lambeau to take on the Green Bay Packers. As Joe stated before, Niners in a tough spot, 5-5, without their starting quarterback in Brock Purdy and Nick Bosa on the sidelines. Other injuries abound as well. It's a banged-up football team going to Green Bay, taking on a team that myself and others consider to be a legitimate Super Bowl contender. So, Joe, how do the Niners approach this with Brandon Allen likely to take the first
I think the
snap?
rushing attack, Mike. I mean, you look at last week in the win, they still allowed 179 yards on the ground to Chicago, 5.3 yards per rush. Could be a little bit of Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason, whoever's capable to run the football. But I think it's early and often run the football, stay in manageable third downs to take the pressure off of Brandon Allen. Put it this way, if they couldn't put up more than 20 points last week with Brock Purdy in that offense, it's going to be very difficult unless they have the rushing attack. I do like the over in terms of the matchup because I do feel that Jordan Love and Green Bay playing at home will be able to push tempo, and I believe in their offense. I think they can get some turnovers today. But again, it's what we talked about in terms of the green room, Donnie. Who's the main weapon for this offense? Is it Juwan Jennings that stepped up? 10 receptions, 91 yards. Debo's non-existent. You're not getting anything from any secondary wide receiver. Ricky Pearsall hasn't come into his own yet, so could be Juwan Jennings or bust today.
I mean, it could be. And also you're taking a look at, Christian McCaffrey in that 80s range here, depending on where he's shopping at for his rushing prop today, which means he's going to have to be the centerpiece of that offense, and rightfully so. Hopefully he can handle that load. But also, Allen at quarterback changes a lot of things. Usually your favorite person to go to is a very trusting tight end, which you do have in George Kittle. But also keep in mind, he's coming off a hamstring injury with missed last week's game. How healthy is he? Debo Samuel, haven't seen him rise to the occasion yet in both rushing and receiving. So it might be the younger guys they have to lean on, which is always tough heading into Green Bay. This is going to be a very interesting game because it feels like the season might be hinging on this game, and it's almost unfair, Mike, to say, where it's, hey, Brock Purdy's not in there. That's not fair. They have next week. Well, next week's Buffalo. We're not even sure that we're actually going to get Brock Purdy next week. So the focal point of this game has to be, Christian, you got to give me everything you have today. 20-plus carries, 100 combined yards, a minimum of 1 touchdown to stick around in this game. So I'm looking at it from a Green Bay winning perspective. The only way San Francisco wins, like, Mike, if you tell me right now McCaffrey runs for 62 yards in this game, no shot at them winning. He has to have a big game today.
Yeah, the only way is if he caught the ball and ran with it for another 100 if you get there. So the combined yardage of McCaffrey, always an interesting play. And to your point, Joe, about their schedule, at Green Bay today, at Buffalo next week, then it's the Bears, the Rams, at Miami, Detroit, and at Arizona. It's not a particularly easy schedule for them, and they're going to need to rip off big wins. They're getting 5.5 today. The total is 44.5. The Niners rarely see this, plus 200 on the money line. So, but it is with Brandon Allen under center. So, the only other – so I want to flip it to the other side to talk about the Green Bay conversation. We talked about it in the previous segment. We need to see Jordan Love take care of the ball a little bit better. We do. They obviously have really nice weapons there. With Jacobs has been really good at times for them. Jaden Reed is a really nice, explosive young player. Christian Watson had a huge explosive play last week to help them secure that victory. But they still find themselves in third place. They won 5 of 6 games. The only loss to Detroit. But they are up against a Vikings team that I think we'll get to the Vikings later. There's a wide disparity in how people view the Vikings, but nonetheless they are 8-2. And then you have Detroit, the biggest wagon in the NFL, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Minnesota right now statistically a little bit better on the defensive side of the ball, especially with Brian Flores and how they've been able to shut down opposing offenses. Great against the run, second best a few weeks ago, allowing less than 3.5 yards per carry. But again, if you're looking Green Bay right now, you have the experience, I believe, in terms of the weapons. Outside of Justin Jefferson, I know Aaron Jones is there. He's a little bit banged up, but I still believe in Green Bay big picture as being the second-best team to challenge Detroit right now. So I still think they're a playoff-caliber team. I think they still can be a number 2 seed, depending upon what happens tonight with the Eagles. I think this is a bad matchup for San Francisco, but big picture, I think Green Bay is a legitimate contender to win an NFC championship. They went toe-to-toe with San Francisco last year. 1 or 2 plays, they pulled that matchup out. Maybe it is not, Detroit and Green Bay last year instead of San Francisco.
Yeah, big picture on the Packers for me. It is interesting because you see their losses. A close one in Brazil to start the season, a close one there to the Minnesota Vikings, and then they got beat by the Lions by 10 points, which the way the Lions beat people, you could say that's probably a close loss there. Now, keep in mind who they're going to play. 49ers today, they need that. Dolphins, Lions, Seahawks, Saints, Vikings, and Bears to finish the season. This is one of those teams where you might not be high on over the next couple weeks, guys, because the losses might be there. But if they make the playoffs, and let's just say they're a 7 or a 6 seed with that competition they played all year long, that's when you'll probably get the best price point. So for me, buying into the Packers right now, I think they beat the 49ers. I'm not going to do that. You know when I buy into the Packers? Late in December, when it looks like they're probably going to get into the playoffs. But the fact of the matter is their record's not going to be indicative of what this team actually is. They're much better than the record probably is going to end up, Mike.
Totally agree. 12-1 to win the North right now, plus 850 to win the conference. I think that's how I really perceive the Packers from the beginning. I didn't think this is a 15-2 type of team. I just thought they could be very dangerous as we get into January and February. And I think the Lions, despite beating them, would have to agree that the Packers are one of their biggest challenges for an NFC conference title track.
Oh, absolutely. Again, Green Bay is built from just a skill perspective to go toe-to-toe with Detroit. That's when you just look at quarterback, wide receivers, and even running back. And the way the defense has been opportunistic against some of the better teams that they have faced, when you look in terms of a playoff type of situation or scenario, if you had to say outside the Philadelphia Eagles, which team potentially can challenge Detroit in the conference, I think it is Green Bay, more so than Minnesota, because, again, in a playoff type of situation, I'd much rather buy into Jordan Love, Donnie, than Sam Darnold.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And also, when you talk about those buy-in points, right, I think they beat the Niners. Then next week they have the Miami Dolphins, which would be a tough one, but it's in Lambeau. The next two games would be at the Lions and at the Seahawks. I'm actually hoping they lose that because then my buy-in point would be before they play the Saints at home. That's the way I'm playing the Packers. Do I think they make the playoffs? Absolutely. Can they get a 1, 2, or 3 seed? I don't know if that's going to be possible. They'll be a wild card team, and they'll be a good wild card team.
Yeah, some interesting numbers from this one as well. You were talking about McCaffrey earlier and how big he has to be. 100 more scrimmage yards in each of his past 5 games, including the playoffs. It's the longest active streak in the NFL. We hadn't seen him, sometimes out of sight, out of mind. Well, we know that he's really the top back in the NFL, along with probably Saquon Barkley this year. We'll come back with more NFL action after this.
Your main event, tail of the tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Ferreira is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6 foot 8. Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs. Francis Ngannou in the gold and black. Reina Ferreira in the gray.
With that lead hand, he's got to be cautious because that right hand is coming over the top.
Oh! Off balanced him a little bit. Take down the net right there. Randy Couture told you to watch for the wrestling. Who lands the takedowns? Good level change from Francis. Well timed. Drives through. Now on top.
My goodness. How are you going to get more of that? Oh!
Triangle attempt here.
Francis needs to rip out of that right now. The longer he stays, the more chance he has getting caught.
Wrist again, trying to stifle the punching attack of Ngannou.
Round 1 halfway gone. Now the far side underhook for Reina Ferreira. See if he can build himself up. Easier said than done. From underneath somebody like Francis Ngannou, who punches from the top. Nasty work! Francis Ngannou wailing away.
Look how heavy he is on the hips. Look at that position. That's beautiful work. Hender's going to have to work tremendously hard to get Ngannou off him so he can get back. And he is unleashing the throw. Oh, he's out! He's out!
He's in trouble! And he's down! And he is done! The king has returned! Francis Ngannou is back!
Hey, folks, welcome back to Pro Football Today. Mike along with Donnie and Joe. What we're going to do now is take a look at the NFC, or continue to look at the NFC North. We just got through the Packers, but we're going to talk Vikings-Bears. I think what's fascinating about this time in the NFL is the concentration of divisional games. We saw a lot of, over the last few weeks, Joe, we saw a lot of funky interconference games, and it's tough to get a read when the Falcons are playing Denver, and then you have a blowout sort of out of nowhere. But we have old school opponents here, black and blue division, Vikings and Bears. Vikings on the road. Now we have a divisional home dog, typically a profitable spot. Do you think the Bears can be profitable for people today?
Well, I think anytime you have a divisional game, right, you go New Orleans, Carolina, where Carolina was dead and buried catching 7.5. They win the ball game outright, so you can never say never. It is a tale of two teams, though, Mike, when you look at Minnesota and Chicago. Minnesota has won 3 straight by an average margin of victory of 7.6 points per game. On the flip side, Chicago's dropped 4 straight by an average margin of defeat of 10 points per game. The emotional letdown, what are you going to get after losing that ball game? Block kick last week as a 5.5-point underdog to Green Bay. You had everything in your hands. All you had to do was make the kick. It gets blocked. What are you going to get out of this team, especially now with a dead man walking and Matt Eberflus? The only concern, and I love Minnesota in this game, but the only concern, Donnie, and I told you earlier, in terms of going 100% all in on Minnesota, 3rd straight road game, right?
Yes.
So I do feel that Brian Flores has the advantage. I do think Justin Jefferson breaks out with a huge performance. I altered him up to 100+ at plus money today. His number's 80 and a half in terms of that matter. But I think it's all Minnesota. But I do like the over. That's my best bet here.
Wow.
39 and a half. I think we can get this game into the mid-40s. Thomas Brown has to be aggressive, the play caller for Chicago.
Liked what I saw last week out of Thomas Brown, too. As you guys know, I was on that 5.5, 6 points there for the Chicago Bears. And quite frankly, they should have won that game outright and blew a game at the end. Here's what's tough about it, too, as Joe points out. You look at the 3-game win streak they had to the Rams, Panthers, and the Jaguars. Then they lose 4 straight games. The Commanders game was so devastating because that's the game where you give up the Hail Mary. That was in your pocket. That was an easy victory. But here's the problem with Matt Eberflus, why most of us think that he's probably not going to be back next year. It took him 2 games to get off the mat. Like, you go out to Arizona, embarrass yourself, and then you come home and should be a layup against the Patriots. That ends up 19-3. You fire the offensive coordinator, you get some life in your offense, and you settle for a field goal at the end of the football game, which gets blocked here. So my question to them is not necessarily if they can win. Is there enough juice left in that locker room? Because the things that we talk about, like the SEC and college football, every week is a grind here, as opposed to like maybe some other conferences. Same thing with this division. Like, you can't lose football games and expect to rebound. Like, oh, next week's going to be easy. Vikings, Lions, 49ers, Vikings, Lions, Seahawks, Packers to end the season. My goodness, Joe.
It's tough. It's tough. And the other thing, too, is you saw Brian Flores and that defense shut down Will Levis. You saw them shut down Joe Flacco, right? What are you going to get out of Caleb Williams? They're going to play possibly a lot of man-to-man coverage. They're going to blitz. So there's potential running lanes for Caleb Williams today. Did step up with 231 yards. And you look at the totals for Minnesota. I'm going completely contrarian. They've played 4 straight unders. Same thing in regards to just Chicago. A dead unders for much of the way in terms of the 4-game losing streak. I think this is a breakout because you have to get this team involved in intensity. The offense has to score. You can't just walk through the motions, find yourself down 10-0 or 10-3 at half and expect to pull that game out. There has to be points. So, again, lean Minnesota. I really like Minnesota because I think they're the more complete team, but I really like the over here.
Yeah, a couple of things. I thought Donnie used the perfect phrase in saying the Bears settled for a field goal at the end of the game, which they did. They did not push it any closer, and it ended up coming back to bite them. 2 weeks in a row, we saw a potential game-winning field goal get blocked fairly easily, actually. The Packers busted through that line, blocked it easily, as did the Chiefs to Denver just the week before. To Joe's point, I like where he's headed, but I would state this. Kevin Seifert of ESPN, outside observers, underestimated the Vikings' defense. In addition to its DVOA rankings, which they rank first in the league, it stands atop the league in opponent QBR under 50, tied for first in takeaways 21, and only 2 teams have totaled more sacks. They have 35. So I think the Vikings are one of those teams where people sit back and like, wow, they're 8-2. They are 8-2, and because as you said, Brian Flores is a big part of that.
He's been absolutely sensational. Also, keep in mind, it's not as if he's going like, look, I use Aaron Rodgers in name because a veteran quarterback, been around for a decade, old school Peyton Manning. They'll be able to decipher some of those defenses. But to me, overall, Flores with a young rookie quarterback, new offensive coordinator, it should be one to watch. I'm impressed that you're on the over in this game because it screams under to me, man.
Turnovers. There's going to be turnovers in terms of this matchup.
Yeah. The
Pick
bet
six.
that I've been hitting consistently is Vikings first half. They jump out really well in the first half. It's only 10.5 today. Being bet to the under, I would be contrarian there. I like the Vikings to get over 10.5 in the first half. We'll come back with more on the Grid after this.
Your main event, tail of the tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Ferreira is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6 foot 8. Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs. Francis Ngannou in the gold and black. Reina Ferreira in the gray.
With that lead hand, he's got to be cautious because that right hand is coming over the top.
Oh! Off-balanced him a little bit. Take down the net. Randy Couture told you to watch for the wrestling. Who lands the takedowns? Good level change from Francis. Well timed. Drives through. Now on top.
My goodness. How are you going to get more of that? Oh!
Triangle attempt here.
Francis needs to rip out of that right now. The longer he stays, the more chance he has of getting caught.
Wrist again, trying to stifle the punching attack of Ngannou.
Round one halfway gone. Now the far side underhook for Reina Ferreira. See if he can build himself up. Easier said than done. From underneath somebody like Francis Ngannou, who punches from the top. Nasty work! Francis Ngannou wailing away.
Look how heavy he is on the hips. Look at that position. That's beautiful work. Hender's going to have to work tremendously hard to get Ngannou off him so he can get back. And he is unleashing lots of throw. Oh, he's out! He's out!
Let's talk Commanders and Cowboys. Cowboys going through a rough stretch. We said a couple of weeks ago they might be the type of team that ends up well under 500, and it looks like it's heading that way, Joe. They are going to be in Washington today, getting 10.5 points. It's been a minute since the Cowboys have gotten that many points, but without Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush in there, they are plus 430 on the money line with a total of 44.5.
Yeah, I couldn't bet them with your money, Mike. I'll tell you that. They have lost 5 straight by 17 points per game, and they're going up against a team in terms of Washington. Mini bye last played against Philadelphia, lost that Thursday night game 10 days ago in the Link. Very tough ball game. They had a third quarter lead, allowed it to surrender, but I expect a breakout performance by Jaden Daniels in the passing attack. We saw C.J. Stroud and almost every other quarterback attack that secondary over the top. Why should it stop today as a 10.5-point favored divisional game? I have no confidence in the Cowboys defense to make any stops. And where are they from an emotional perspective? I just don't see them going up and getting up on the road and just playing within the number today, especially how turnover prone they've been. They're not forcing turnovers from a defensive perspective. This is all Washington. I do like the over here as well, Donnie.
Yeah, here's the problem that we're going to have with the Dallas Cowboys. Like, you might say on a normal week, like, okay, let's protect Cooper Rush. Let's use the running game and CeeDee Lamb's at wide receiver. Zach Martin's down today, maybe the best guard overall in football, or up there, at least in the top 5 still, and also banged up in that secondary. Nothing tells me the Dallas Cowboys should be able to stick into this game unless you believe that they can score a late touchdown. When we know Cooper Rush can't lead anybody down the field, even in junk time, he couldn't do it last week. I don't think he does it again today. Simple diagnosis for the Washington Commanders. Just be yourself today. Jaden Daniels, let me see some of that over the first 4 to 5 weeks of the season. Explosive outside the pocket, throwing deep shots here. Terry McLaurin, who was absolutely blanketed last week by Quinyon Mitchell and the Philadelphia Eagles, gets so much easier this week. If you're looking at that Commanders game saying, I really didn't like what they did against Philadelphia, couldn't move the football, the Eagles are a very good defense. The Dallas Cowboys, not a good defense. Robinson should be live. McLaurin should be live. The quarterback should be live. And also, the defense, that is a little bit maligned for Washington. This is one of those games, Joe, you can pin your ears back.
Yeah, think about Thursday night's game. They couldn't run the football at all against Houston. You can't run the football on the road. You're in long third down situations, more pressure on the offensive line, and Cooper Rush might not make it through the game in terms of that front seven. I mean, it's a serious – he might be sacked a number of times. We might see Trey Lance by default in this matchup. Let's not forget Dan Quinn knows the personnel of Dallas very well, right? So he understands the strengths. He understands the weaknesses. Are we confident that Mike McCarthy and that team are going to be up for this game? You might bet it from a prop perspective here and there, but tread lightly because, again, if Cooper Rush gets knocked out or doesn't, is not consistent, then you got to worry about Trey Lance.
Who would be your prop in this game from the Cowboys? Is it like
CD or bust? I mean,
again, like who else? Like no, but like Dowdle is horrendous. Like, hey, he's going to get 50 yards today. Yeah, who's the other? They had like 3 tight ends last time.
You guys are making my sell me something bit that much harder. I'm going to be churning uphill on that one. So, but to Joe's point, Commanders actually lead the league in fewest turnovers. So Jaden Daniels taking care of the ball. He hasn't been as mobile in the last few weeks. We'll see if he can cure that this week. Or like Donnie said, keep it simple and come away with the victory. Let's go to the other game in this segment, and that is the Denver Broncos and the Las Vegas Raiders. Joe, I know you were high on Brock Bowers last week. He can become the third rookie tight end in NFL history with 75 receptions, joining Sam Laporta last year and Keith Jackson all the way back in 1988. He's having a tremendous season. Problem is everything's falling apart around him. And Denver coming off a huge victory against Atlanta.
Yeah, and you have a team now in the Las Vegas Raiders that have lost 6 straight. They didn't cover as an 8.5-point road dog against Miami. Brock Bowers is the only bright spot for this team right now. We talk about Travis Kelce type of players in the NFL draft. That is Brock Bowers. Still hanging a 60 number on him today. I think he potentially gets through that, maybe anytime touchdown. I will say from the spread perspective, Donnie, 5.5 divisional game, this line smells a little bit. I understand how dominant Denver's been, and you talk about a breakout performance by Bo Nix, 307 yards, 4 touchdowns. How much of that was just Denver being dominant and how bad that Atlanta defense was last week? 3 of the touchdowns came on bubble screens inside the red zone where the Denver Atlanta defense didn't stop anybody. They got outblocked, and Marvin Mims made them pay. Again, I think Bo Nix will lead in this game, but I'm inclined to take the points with Las Vegas. 5.5 just seems fishy to me. Lower scoring game under the 41.5.
Here's what I like about this game. Sean Payton, absolutely an offensive guru. He's going to be licking his chops all week long saying, who are we going up against? Oh, that Raiders secondary, the worst in the entire league here, which means the one thing that we've liked about Bo Nix and the way he's sort of progressed here, Mike, is he got hit the ground running. Even if he was struggling, hey, I'm going to throw 46 times this game for 124 yards. They just kept throwing every single week, which helps him out. And this is one of those weeks where I really think Cortland Sutton is going to be a monster on the outside. Joe is right. Still rookie quarterback. The team's still trying to learn and play that, hey, can we keep it close as an underdog? No, you're the favorite. You're supposed to win by a touchdown on the road in Las Vegas. But for me and my money, Bo Nix over 1.5 touchdown passes makes a lot of sense. Maybe a team total here for the Broncos. And also, Mike, I look at this total. 40.5 up to 41.5 at most outlets. It seems light to me. It seems light.
I know.
Yeah, I think part of that, part of what you're saying in Bo Nix's success is Sean Payton giving him the easy wins. I think he's helped him to build confidence. We all know that Nix had a ton of experience in college, so for him to get rolling with Cortland Sutton, Devon Bailey, also a pretty low number today. I know a lot of people like him, so I think it's interesting that they are, to your point, the line does smell a little bit, Joe. I like the Broncos' first half. The Raiders have not gone off to good starts offensively. You can lay 3.5 in this one and not have to worry about a backdoor cover. I think the Broncos get off to a better start, so I like them there. Now, I want to turn it to sort of a larger scope discussion about the Broncos because I think they're a team, Joe, that people have been doubting. Nix is starting to slowly play more consistently. And this Denver defense is lauded quite a bit. Zach Allen, Patrick Surtain, 2 guys that have really burst onto the scene and taking their game to another level on a team that's a playoff contender.
Yeah, and they sacked Kirk Cousins multiple times. They got after it once they had a double-digit lead, so the front 7 playing much better. We always knew that the foundation was there from the defensive perspective. It was what were you going to get out of the quarterback position, right? And Bo Nix has progressed. He's starting to look like the player that they drafted out of Oregon. He had an 81% completion percentage for much of the year last year, his senior season. We saw that now play out last week against Atlanta. If that can continue, I'm not suggesting 80, Donnie, but if he can throw for 60, 65% in terms of completion percentage, limit the turnovers, we know what he could do in terms of the RPO game. He's capable of putting up 50 and 60 yards on the ground. Big picture, I still think they're a little bit raw. I don't think they're as complete as maybe Green Bay making a run the way Green Bay did. I still think they're a one and done. But if they get to the playoffs, that would be a huge testament to what Sean Payton has built here.
And also doable. The next two games you look at the Raiders, which is today, and then you come home against the Cleveland Browns. That should be two victories, which should put you well on your way to the playoffs. And also keep in mind, for a young quarterback, they've actually been decent on the road. You remove that Ravens game, which they got slaughtered. The other games, 6-point loss to Seattle. The other ones, the Buccaneers, which they hammered in week number 3 when the Bucs were still healthy. They beat the Jets on the road. They beat the Saints on the road. And they should have beat the Chiefs on the road. They lost that game 16-14. So usually say rookie quarterback on the road, not going to be able to make you a lot of money. They've actually been very good on the road. And today, what we love in late November, it's a dome. We don't have to worry about any weather conditions. We're not in Denver, 32 degrees, snow, and all that stuff. So it should be a clean playing field. Why high up that 41.5? Because if you have a veteran quarterback for the Raiders, they should be able to move the football. And I know Denver, Mike's going to move the football.
I think Sean Payton knows they want to get some work done here at 6-5 at Raiders, Browns, then a late bye week, and then the Colts coming out of the bye week in Denver. Unfortunately, after that, at Chargers, at Bengals, and the Chiefs. We'll see if the Chiefs have anything to play for. That could be an interesting dynamic in that game as well. All right, I think we've laid it out pretty well for Denver. The Raiders, as Joe stated, going through it, 6 losses in a row. I think Antonio Pierce, unfortunately, is outmatched against a lot of his divisional coaches, and they've fired half the coaching staff, and it hasn't made any impact at all. I think they're lacking in talent, and it's going to be a huge overhaul situation, Joe.
No, it is. It is. Intensity, when do the players start checking out? It was good last year where he was on an interim basis. It's a different animal now in first year at the helm in terms of the real coach, where they might be checked out today and beyond.
Yeah, victim of their own success to a certain point. They didn't hire Rich Bisaccia on the interim tag. They do hire Antonio Pierce, not going well for them. It's going to keep going well for us on Pro Football Today.
Your main event, tail of the tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Ferreira is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6'8". Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs. Francis Ngannou in the gold and black. Reina Ferreira in the gray.
Oh, that lead hand, he's got to be cautious because that right hand is coming over the top.
Oh! Off-balanced him a little bit. Takedown to him. Randy Couture told you to watch for the wrestling. Who lands the takedowns? Good level change from Francis. Well timed. Drives through. Now on top.
My goodness. How are you going to get more of that? Oh!
Triangle attempt here.
Francis needs to rip out of that right now. The longer he stays, the more chance he has getting caught.
Wrist again, trying to stifle the punching attack of Ngannou.
Round 1 halfway gone. Now the far side underhook for Reina Ferreira. See if he can build himself up. Easier said than done. From underneath somebody like Francis Ngannou, who punches from the top. Nasty work!
Look at that positioning, that's beautiful work. Hender's going to have to work tremendously hard to get Ngannou off him so he can get back. And he is unleashing the bottom from. Oh, he's out! He's out!
He's in trouble! And he's down! And he is done! The king has returned! Francis Ngannou is back!
All right, we are back talking NFC West. Pretty fascinating division this year. We talked about the Niners earlier and finding themselves at the bottom of the division, but two teams will slug it out today to see exactly who can make you see the NFC West division odds here on our screen. The Cardinals,
crazy, isn't that, Mike?
Right now, the favorites to win the division, and everybody else effectively a dead heat, 420 to 490 between the three of them. But the Cardinals, the favorites in the division, go on the road today and are underdogs. They are getting 1.5 in Seattle. 47.5 is the total, Joe. Pretty much a coin flip game, but the Cardinals coming off another really good performance.
Yeah, they're 2-4 at home, Seattle is, right? And they lost 4 straight home games by an average margin of defeat of 9 points per game, and they got one of the hottest teams, not just in the NFC, but the NFL for that matter, in Arizona coming to town. I understand it's a home game for Seattle, and I do feel and understand why they're only a 1.5-point dog or 1-point favorite now in terms of the line movement, but at the end of the day, Arizona is the more complete team to me. Kyler Murray's playing at an elite level. Trey McBride, a great tight end. They're running the football consistently with James Conner. And more importantly, the defense is opportunistic, and they're shutting down high-powered offenses. Look at what they did to Caleb Williams. Look at what they did to Aaron Rodgers. I mean, holding teams to field goals, Donnie, and not touchdowns. I know Geno had a great performance in the fourth quarter, but this is a different animal. The fact that they're playing at home, I don't care. I'm taking Arizona. I think they win this ball game by double digits.
Yeah, you look at that line. It tells you a lot, too. Like, usually one of the best home field advantages, Mike, in football is what? Playing in front of the 12s in Seattle. -1. That line screams. Absolutely. Please take a Seattle Seahawks when you know you probably should be taking the opposite side in Arizona. Now, Kevin would like this if he was here. Like 4 straight wins. Like they got to prove. Arizona's got to prove something to me in this game to actually win it again. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, like they got to prove it to me this week. They continue to prove it. And I saw that graphic to start. They're in first place right now, technically, here in the odds market, and rightfully so. You win this game. That is a massive win because we're waiting for the 49ers to come back. They might be dead and buried at this point. So is Arizona the best overall team in this division when also the Rams are facing the Philadelphia Eagles tonight? This is finally one of those games where you get the juices flowing. We should have action from the quarterbacks, the running backs, and also the wide receivers today, Joe. I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, and I think when you look at last week's win over San Francisco, how much of that is just where San Francisco is now to where Seattle is? Again, Kenneth Walker's hit or miss. Pick the week that he steps up and the offensive line has shown consistency and the rushing attack is going to be there. And we have talked on this desk multiple times about how underrated Jonathan Gannon is as a head coach, right? Last year he was a covering machine,
Eberflus.
Right? Yeah, definitely. And now all of a sudden they're starting to win games and put teams away. I mean, Mike, they're not just winning games. They're after that win against Miami where they trailed in the fourth quarter and pulled it out 28-27, they've been knocking teams out. So, again, I hate to go against that just because the line suggests that maybe Seattle's live after last week and they're due. I'm going with the better quarterback and the better coach right now.
Several great points there, Joe. I think that Miami game for them is a game that hardly anybody watched because there were so many other high-profile games on at the same time, and Arizona had a huge second-half comeback in that game and propelled them to 2 consecutive 20-plus point victories, and now they're coming off a bye. I think what you said about Seattle is spot on. It's the most frustrating part for me. Geno is having a really nice season. There's a lot of turnovers in there. He's having a nice season, but the problem for me is that they shouldn't be playing that way. They should be a team with more balance. They have Kenneth Walker, who can provide a huge rushing attack, and they're not doing it. They are relying on Geno too much, and I think it puts the game in the hands of turnovers far too often. So I'm with you guys. I think I like Arizona on the road today. Gannon's done a really good job. Starting last year, I think he set a tone for the defense, for them playing hard, and even a lot of those games that they lost a year ago. And now with Kyler back and playing good Kyler Murray ball, they are a threat. It's interesting that when you compare the two divisions, Donnie, that we discussed the NFC North at length, and we feel like we have a lot of faith in 3 of the teams there that are good teams. The NFC West is very different. We have a lot of question marks about these teams, and maybe Arizona is the top team.
Which is crazy. We showed that graphic that showed them 13-1 to win the division before the season started, now completely flipping over to that -120 price, and still the 49ers, they must be the darlings of the sports books the past couple of years. No matter when they win or lose, their number always seems like it increases. But now you're starting to see the fractures here in the foundation for San Francisco. Again, if we play this week out, the Philadelphia Eagles are favored to beat the Rams. Let's say that happens here. Arizona pulls a mild upset up north, and the San Francisco 49ers get beat. Now you're in pole position where now instead of being the hunters, you will be the hunted. And quite frankly, I agree with that. They're winning across the board. This was one of the teams I started the season out, Joe, and said to myself, every single game they go into, I want to fade this defense because it's terrible. And they lived up to the hype the first couple weeks. They've really turned it around. That game watching against the Jets, I know it's the Jets and Aaron Rodgers. They absolutely beat him and pummeled him in that pocket. And it continued once again in that Bears game the week before, 29-9. Love where you can bring your defense on the road, which used to be a negative. Now it's not, Joe.
Well, think about how you build teams, right? You originally build them from the interior, right? Offense and defensive lines. And to Donnie's point, that defensive line is aggressive. They're better against the run than they were at the start of the season and even last year. And they're getting after the quarterback. They bring a number of different looks to put pressure on versatile, athletic quarterbacks. You name it, they can get to the quarterback. And third down defense has been fantastic over the last 3 or 4 weeks. So that's another factor. But I will say this, when you look at the eye test and you just think about offensively, they do have the big three, right? You have a marquee quarterback that's coming into his own in terms of Kyler, an MVP type of quarterback that can develop. You have James Conner that doesn't get enough recognition as being one of the most consistent running backs in the NFL. You have Marvin Harrison now coming into his own. And you have Trey McBride that all he does is catch 80 yards per game and convert on third downs. What more can you ask for? And that's why Arizona's legit. I will say, if we're talking, teams to catch them, the only team I would be willing to bet money on to potentially catch them is Matt Stafford and the Rams. I don't buy into San Fran, and I certainly don't buy into Seattle big picture.
About that?
Yeah, all really good points there. I don't think it's an exaggeration to talk about Kyler and his MVP possibilities. I do have a prop in that game on Marvin Harrison, which I think is way too low. We'll get to it a little bit later. We talk a lot about negative scheduling issues. Arizona caught some breaks here in their schedule. They got 2 home games, then a bye week before they went to Seattle. They have not traveled out of Arizona since that Miami game, nearly a month. They will have at Seattle, at Minnesota, and then back home for Seattle and New England. So a nice little pocket here for them in their schedule. We'll wrap up our number 1 after a little pocket of ads on SportsGrid. We'll be right back after this.
Your main event, tail of the tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Ferreira is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6 foot 8. Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs. Francis Ngannou in the gold and black. Reina Ferreira in the gray.
That lead hand, he's got to be cautious because that right hand is coming over the top.
Oh! Off-balanced him a little bit. Takedown right there. Randy Couture told you to watch for the wrestling. Who lands the takedowns? Good level change from Francis. Well timed. Drives through. Now on top.
My goodness. How are you going to Kimura that? Oh!
Triangle attempt here.
Francis needs to rip out of that right now. The longer he stays, the more chance he has getting caught.
Wrist again, trying to stifle the punching attack of Ngannou.
Round 1 halfway gone. Now the far side underhook for Reina Ferreira. See if he can build himself up. Easier said than done. From underneath somebody like Francis Ngannou, who punches from the top. Nasty work! Francis Ngannou wailing away.
Look how heavy he is on the hips. Look at that positioning. That's beautiful work. Hender's going to have to work tremendously hard to get Ngannou off him so he can get back. And he is unleashing the control. Oh, he's out! He's out!
Closing out hour number one, continuing to talk about the NFC West here with Joe and Donnie. We talked a lot about how the preseason odds have shifted dramatically. 13-1 were the Cardinals' chances to win the NFC West heading into the season. Now they find themselves as the favorites here in Week 12. So, Joe, we talked a little bit about you did a really nice job in the previous segment laying out some of the strengths of the team with Kyler, Trey McBride, James Conner, Marvin Harrison, really interesting offensive pieces. What would you say could be their fatal flaw?
Again, the defense in run support is always a concern, right? That was a huge weakness for them last year. They've been much better. But again, against bigger, more physical offensive lines like Green Bay, I do have concerns about that in a playoff type of situation, certainly against a team like Detroit and even Philadelphia for that matter. Again, if it's a shootout and this game is into the high 30s in that type of situation, I believe Kyler can go toe-to-toe. Big picture against some of the better teams. That's what I worry about in terms of a playoff situation. Teams that can run the football consistently and shut down the runs typically are the teams that make it to the championship. That's what Detroit gave you last year. Obviously, San Francisco's defense much better than what we're seeing right now. So they're going to need that type of effort in terms of big picture, Donnie.
Yeah, for me, looking at the Arizona Cardinals at 6-4, again, the joke still runs. It's like, hey, show me something this weekend when they keep doing it every week. So I almost have that perceived notion here from the beginning of the season, Mike, that said Arizona wasn't supposed to be a great football team. Will they surprise and play good football times? Yes, but ultimately you're going to look at that defense not performing up to his capabilities. And also Kyler Murray. We've seen him play very good football and then have a nice little first half of the season and completely fall off at this point. Nobody's wishing injuries. Nobody's expecting injuries. That's not the angle I'm taking, but I'm still trying to fight those preconceived notions to start the season where the Cardinals are winding up now. But as you look at the rest of that division, which we'll get into, the Rams, Seahawks, and 49ers, this is a massive day for that division, Mike.
Totally. If the Niners are able to pull off a win in Green Bay with Brandon Allen under center, then I think it changes your perception of them. I think the Niners are probably the most difficult team to evaluate right now because injuries have taken such a toll on them. Even at 5-5, we all know they have a chance to rip off a few wins here, but they'll have to do it in different fashion than they're accustomed to. I'm a little concerned about the Cardinals' consistency of pass rush. It was non-existent early in the year, Donnie, and I just think that could be a fatal flaw for them. Let's talk about the Rams. We haven't gotten to their game yet, but Joe mentioned earlier he thinks the Rams are the ones with a fighting chance against the Cardinals. How do you evaluate the Rams, another team that's been befallen by many injuries this season?
It's still a tough schedule on the way out and a huge game against the Philadelphia Eagles. But I think when you're talking about like the trust factors, what we look at, like you normally would trust the San Francisco 49ers because, Mike, the talent on the football team, Brock Purdy's played some good football, Kyle Shanahan, maybe my favorite play caller in the NFL. But the trust level is a little bit different for the Rams because been there, done that. Super Bowl championship. Matthew Stafford is healthy. Puka Nacua looks like he's the next great wide receiver in the NFL. Cooper Kupp, reliable in the slot. Anytime you have a quarterback, if he gets protection and has those type of weapons on the outside, and also, I'm leaving out this guy because everybody usually does. Kyron Williams, one of the best running backs in football that doesn't seem like, and he's in L.A., it's a big market, doesn't get all that, front headlines here that he should be getting. I know the defense is a little bit lacking, but the reason why I trust the Rams probably more than anything, as I just said, give me that quarterback, give me those wideouts, and I'll live with it, Joe.
And the coach, too. McVay has already won a Super Bowl, and the defense is coming around. We talk about the offensive pieces, and rightfully so, but Jared Verse is going to be mentioned in terms of Rookie of the Year coming on. They're getting better in terms of run support, getting after the quarterback. They have a lot of rookies playing at multiple levels, and they're developing and finding continuity. If you could get sort of what you got out of Green Bay at the end of the regular season, they have the potential to make a run at not just a division title, but potentially maybe a playoff run to challenge the likes of Green Bay. I still think that, in a one-game situation, if we're talking Detroit and L.A., Stafford, you would give the edge over Goff, wouldn't you? I mean, I understand it's just Stafford has won a Super Bowl. Goff hasn't. He's been to a Super Bowl. Yeah. They've been there, and that's where I think that value comes. And just let's not forget, I think it was week 6, week 7, they're plus 790 to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Plus 790 because they were 1-4 at one point.
You don't have to sell me on Matt Stafford. I'm with you completely. I think what's fascinating about this, you have 3 teams that are just a game out of first place where you can get between 4 and 5 to 1 odds to win the division, Donnie.
Yep.
It could literally change in about 6 hours. We could see a different team in
Absolutely
first place.
massive today. And also winnable games. We're not talking about one of these teams hey, Arizona's going on the road. They're getting 8.5. Like, no, legitimate lines where these teams can actually win. And some of these teams like the Rams at home today should be a wild NFC West here.
Yeah, hour 2 coming up. We're going to recover a lot more games. We'll get into more divisionals and teams trying to make runs. The Miami Dolphins and teams that are maybe a little bit different version of themselves as we head into the back part of the season. Back after this.